Thank you. I am set to go too. I am so grateful, thankful that you invited me, Jim, and to participate in this event today. There seems to be
Somebody needs to unmute her.
okay. My heart is full of gratitude this morning. First of all, because AA exists. Number two, because I am a sober member of AA, and you are also sober members of AA. Three, I am grateful for this connection, that it is available through Zoom. And above all, I am grateful that I believe in the supernatural and that miracles still exist. Miracles as experiences that we consider beyond what could happen in the natural order. How about you being sober, me being sober? Is that not beyond what could naturally happen? The power has done what no human power can possibly do, as our book says. Though I cannot define who or what the power is, I only believe that it is real. I experience that power every day, and I know that I am not a victim of circumstances, whether it's alcoholism or it's COVID-19. I am not the victim of it. Bold words. But I believe the power is just that. It is the power. I went for a walk yesterday, I think it was yesterday, and I crossed a sidewalk. And crossing the sidewalk, I saw creeping up between the cement a tiny green shoot. And I thought it was so fragile, and yet it was maneuvering its way through cement. And I think that's that power that is at work. My job is to talk about step one, so I'll get to that. Very exciting, because I have a whole new relationship to the concept of powerlessness, and that's what I want to talk about this morning. I love the idea. It gives me a freedom I did not think was possible. Number one, I see the world different. Number two, I see everything different. You, me, work, success, relationships, everything. And three, it has become the basis of my relationship with God. The result, I think different, I act different. Today, I believe that the design for living is spectacular, and I try to act accordingly. And also another is the principles of the steps and traditions and our way of life have become a way of moving through the world. And that is a very different way, and I have a very different experience of it now. It's taken a lot of living to get to what I have just said and to be able to see that, let alone to say it publicly. But it's what I believe, and therefore I will say it. See, I think what happens is we live forward and understand backward. So I'm going to tell you, try and quickly tell you how I have come to the place where I am now. Because I know a freedom today that I never expected to experience. I know a joy today that I never expected to experience. And I'm no longer carrying you or anybody or the world on my shoulders. And that's because of the concept of powerlessness as I see it today. That's the ticket. I used to say the words, but really, I don't believe they meant to me what I could grasp at the time. But I did not realize that powerlessness is a state of who I am. It defines me. And it is the depth of that experience that has really changed me. So let me tell you where I started and what I think was really wrong in my life. I started out in a family of 10. I was the baby, and I had a sister, Dora, and I really can't talk about this without mentioning this because it started me on the path of trying to control the world. Dora had been injured at birth, and at that time, the educational system didn't know what to do with a slow learner, so to speak. They kept her in grade 3 till she was 16. She cried, and I cried. I was 3 years old at this time. She was 16. And I loved her, and I wanted to change the world for her. So I did what I knew how. I went to my brothers and sisters expecting they would change it. When that didn't happen, I went to God. And then I became really confused because God was a big player in our world. Everybody went to church. I believed God had power. I believed God was love. And my ideas started to fade. I didn't know how to think about this. And in me then were born attitudes that led me to the gates of insanity and death. Because when I came here, I was in a state of pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization. What happened was I began, as I said, trying to process the world, make the world different. I felt the world was mean. I felt the world was nasty. And I thought I could change it. When I found that I couldn't, I began the process of trying to find people who I thought had more power than I did. And if I thought you had more power than I did, then I began the process of trying to control you, trying to manipulate you, trying to influence you that you would do my will. That's the story of my life, because if I can put it in simple language, I sold my soul for that. I can't fix the world, but you can. Somebody out there is going to make it okay. And I can tell you that did not happen. But what did happen was when I tried to get you to fix the world and you did not, I became angry, and out of me came all that negativity, the things that the masters have said we shouldn't do: hatred, judgment, criticism, and a totally negative attitude toward life. And then at 5, I took a drink, and everything changed. Because when I took that drink, it seemed that my problem went away, but it didn't really. What happened was my feelings changed. I liked the way I felt when I drank alcohol. You know, Dr. Silkworth puts it this way. He says we get a sense of ease and comfort. And that's what I got, and that's what I chased. And I paid the price for what it was that I chased. And the alcoholism, the drinking of the alcohol, I should say the active alcoholism, drove me for 35 years. The players and the places changed. The situations changed. But in reality, what was really driving that wagon was this business of trying to control, trying to get power so I could have the world the way I wanted it. Nothing changed, including 15 years in a convent. Now, there's an effort to make change, I'll tell you. Out of it also came 32 hospitalizations in psych wards, 38 electroshock treatments, hours of therapy, even marrying my very own psychiatrist, not while I was in the convent, of course. But this all came to an end. And in 1966, I left the convent, And then began another part of the journey down to a life of degradation. I thought it was as simple as taking off the religious habit, changing my name, being dispensed from the vows. Nothing changed. The places changed. I went to the bars, I found the men, they found me, and I wound up in jail. And I still remember the day that the chief of police was down in the cell yelling at me because he heard there was an ex-nun down there, and he was disgusted with this, and he told me so. He said, "What's wrong with you?" He said, "You were a nun 3 months ago." And he was right. And I remembered the day I took my final vows. I remember that day because I was dressed in white. It was a very special day. The organ was playing, the sun was shining through the stained glass windows, the choir was singing. And when I got to the altar, the custom was you prostrated and you gave your life to God. And that's what I did. And I felt the heavens had opened. The choir was singing, Magnificat anima Deus Dominum. My soul does magnify the Lord, and my spirit rejoices in God, my Savior. And that morning, that's exactly the way I felt. And I thought, it's the pain and the misery is over. 3 days later, I was drunk again. How do you answer that? Of course, if you're alcoholic, you know. The truth is, alcoholism had me by the balls, so to speak. The book says it a little more gently, a little more sophisticated. It says, remember that we deal with alcohol, cunning, baffling, and powerful. That's not the alcohol. If you know how it's written, that doesn't mean the alcohol is cunning, baffling, and powerful. It's how I deal with it. I have had every opportunity to lead a good life, to be successful in life, and not to wind up where I was going, to a park bench as a tramp. See, my life went from trying to fix Dora, and now I'm trying to get somebody to fix me. I'll just tell you that in I think it was 1967, I met Dr. Hoffer. Hoffer was Bill's friend. He's the doctor who had done these studies in LSD, and he knew Bill. And so when I came into the psych ward, he took a look at my files and he said, "You need to go to AA." AA? Of course I'll go to AA. My brother had gone. My dad said it was a wonderful organization. Remember, in 1967, AA was not out in the public the way it is now. And I went to AA. Did I want to be sober? No, I never wanted to be sober. I wanted you to fix me so that I could be happy. And I sat in AA 5 years, stoned because I couldn't stand the way I felt. And then I drank again. And that's the disaster part of this. And then the morning of May the 18th, the police came and took me off the park bench where I had been living as a tramp for 2 months. They took me into a psych ward, and there, that was a Friday. That's my dry date, May the 18th, 1973. My God date is a different day, because on the more Sunday morning, I decided that I'm going to end it. I took a little inventory and I looked at my life. I looked at you. You seemed to have it. You had the playbook. I did not. I didn't know how to live. And I looked and said, you know, Mildred, you've tried religion, you've tried education, da, 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 da. I went through the whole list and nothing has worked for you. Get out of here. And that's what I decided. I knew where I was going. And I said to myself, in a half hour, I'm out of here. And then the unbelievable happened. See, I've read a lot of books in the days when I went to university and studied theology. I read a lot. It's not what I've read the great philosopher says, it's not about our concepts, it's about our experience. And my experience that morning was different from anything I had experienced. I was waiting for my coat to go and take my life, and I had a spiritual experience. So what happened to me that morning was I had a part in that. I didn't make it happen. I gave in. I finally realized, the book says we have to concede to our innermost selves that we're alcoholic. I had done that years ago, and that didn't help to change me. But the morning of May the 20th, I gave in to something else. I, Mildred, have no idea how to do life. And what I learned about that great power is that's what it's waiting for. It has the power. It has the intelligence. It has everything necessary to take me on the journey that I'm here for. And that's what happened. It took the compulsion and the obsession. And in 46 years and 11 months, I have never had it back. But what it left me with was me. See, I think the Spirit wants us to cooperate. Like, I don't think God's going to do it for me unless he can do it through me. And, and I think we have another statement in the book that's so powerful, which says that God does for us what we cannot. And I believe that God does for us what we can't. But if I can, then I need to help myself. And that morning, I helped myself by absolutely giving in. And that's when things started to change. I did not know what had happened to me. I just knew I was clean inside, and that was God's truth. As I said, I have not had the compulsion, not had the obsession. But oh my goodness, my thinking needed to change. My relationships to God, my relationships to people, my relationships to the world were out of whack. And so when I got out of the hospital, I went to Skid Row. And so from Park Bench, hospital, Skid Row. And I lived on Skid Row for a year. And now that I'm isolated like this, I think back to that year. That was a year of silence. It was kind of a year of peace. I'll tell you why. My beliefs hadn't changed, but I really had no hope. I had no idea how things were going to change. And then there was one good doctor, psychiatrist at the hospital, and he had me come see him once. I don't know what we talked about, but I know that he was kind, and he kept saying to me, "You will be all right." He said, "If you stay sober, stay clean, and it'll work out." Then it started. I was 6 months clean and sober. And one day I was in the institution and a man asked me if I wanted to go with him to a meeting. I had no idea what kind of meeting it was. I thought AA was stupid. And that's where we went. I didn't know I was going to a meeting of AA. And the truth is, I fell in love. I fell in love eventually. I remember they kept saying to me, "Keep coming back." And I used to think, why do they want me? I'm broken. And I was broken. And eventually I got a sponsor. She lasted 3 months. She got drunk. And then 2 guys stepped up. This world is full of such goodness. There are so many people who pour that goodness out. And those 2 men stepped up and they said, "Mildred, you're too sick to stay here if you don't do the steps." I said, "I don't know how. I can't read." That's how broken I was. And they said, "We'll take you through." And they did. And I got to stay. I did the steps as best I knew how. The steps aren't about doing them perfectly. They're not about the intellect. They're about the heart. And my heart was right at that time. I wanted to stay in AA. And so I did. And then the God shots started to happen. That's all I can say. Because I think that once that's the way this works. Once you start making a move, I didn't make a move to God. I was just staying sober. I was doing what I knew how to do, and that was enough. And I got 1 year went by, and I got off Skid Row. I got a teaching job, and 7 years went by, and I had paid off all my debts. And one of my friends said, "You should buy a house." And I had no money saved. And 10 days later, I bought my first house. And as I say, I didn't have to sleep with anybody either to do it. And I was to buy many houses. And again, I made a lot of money, and I built my own house, and I had an ideal life, and I was a good member of AA. I haven't said anything about powerlessness. I was busy fixing the outside. I thought if I could say I admitted I'm powerless, that was the end of it. Not at all. It had to come into my heart and into my life. And when I was 21 years sober, something happened. Something happened inside. I realized I'm not okay. I've got the outside going really good. And I think that's the way the Spirit is. The Spirit does not ask of us what we can't give. And when we can give, we're asked for more. And now at 21 years, I was suicidal because I had the money, I had the outside life going, but I didn't have the inside. And so I'm disturbed inside, and God sent me the people. See, I haven't got enough time to talk about all of what happened in that 20-year period. But it had to do with, number one, walls. I had lived behind walls all my life. Walls behind walls was the safest place I could find. And, people used to say, "You intimidate me." I understand now. They couldn't get past my walls. You didn't get to know me because I wouldn't. And Father O'Brien one day called me and said, "I want you to give a retreat." And I'm putting this all together quickly because I want to talk a bit about powerlessness, because this is all part of the process. I don't think we get up one day and say, "Oh, I've got a new idea about powerlessness." It's through all these experiences that this happened. And it was the walls coming down, and it was the giving of retreats that also changed me, because I'm an honest person. And in giving retreats, I had to do some real searching to find out what I really believed and how I really felt about the world. And I began to see that the person I was had some cleaning up to do. And God put the books in my path. He put the teachers in my path. He showed me the old stuff that I was carrying, the old beliefs that I had carried from childhood, which so much drove my wagon. Nobody cares about me. I'm not important. Nothing ever goes right for me. And if that's driving you, you're going to have some problems in life, as I did. So about that time, I guess it would have been about 15 years ago, another process of change began in me. And I am so grateful. What I have described to you has been necessary. Ram Dass, who just passed away about 3 weeks ago, he used to talk about fierce grace. And I think that is such an appropriate expression, because I think for grace to come to us, some of us have to have fierce experiences. And I think that the early years of my life, not that I don't feel sorry for myself, but in a way they were fierce, because I was not happy inside. I did not understand what life was about. And, just because I went to some meetings and did some of that outside stuff, I wasn't okay. It took me to about 15 years ago where I was really starting to see the world different. And then people came into my life. And I had paid attention to certain things. I think this is how life functions. There are many forces at work. There are many things that have to happen for that genuine inner growth to happen. And I thought about what were the things that really influenced me. I remember being quite taken by the statement in the big book. Isn't it amazing how we read that book and pass things over, and one day it's like, why did I never see that before? And one of those was page 55. Deep down in every man, woman, and child is the fundamental idea of God. It is only there that he may be found. How many times did I read that? And then I began to think, if that is the case, none of the great spiritual masters have ever said that we have to like people. They say we have to love them. What does that mean? And I love the story of Gandhi, Einstein writing to Gandhi and saying to Gandhi, what's that thing you say, namaste? I want to know. And Gandhi writing back saying, it means the God in me salutes the God in you. I love that idea. And that started to make a difference. Then page 45 in the big book where it says lack of power. That was my dilemma. What do you mean I don't have power? I can do this and I can do that and I can do the other thing. And one of my sponsor actually took me to page 59 where it says, there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find him now. Now, if there is one who has all the apples, then I guess that's all the apples. And if there is one who has all power, that's exactly what it means. And that is what I believe. I don't mean that I don't have access to power. Of course I do. I use physical power, I use mental power, I use emotional power, I use psychic power, all kinds. The secret is it's not my own. And if I'm using the power of God, then I cannot do the things I used to do. I can't be judging. The masters have all said it. Don't judge, don't criticize, don't hate, forgive your enemies, all that stuff. And I can't do that stuff if I'm trying to run the world, because you're going to displease me for sure. And then I'm back to the negative. Another thing that really affected me was a Jewish rabbi who befriended me. And he brought me to the book of Ecclesiastes, because we were talking about this subject. And in the book of Ecclesiastes, which was written 3,000 years ago, it says, the pursuit, it uses the language of the Aramaic, but he said, the pursuit of life, controlling life is futile. 3,000 years ago, there were wise people who understood. You know, it doesn't mean that I can't have a good life, that I can't pursue things, but I can't pursue them through I want this. See, that's why the book says, I believe, self is the root of the problem. You know, when I started to do this talk and thought, how can I put this together? That's what I saw. All my life, drive to get people to do my will. And it can't be that way. If I don't have power of my own and I'm using power, I'm using God's power. That's what I believe. And I'm not going to try and define God. And if you have a problem with that word, I understand that. So do I. I left the church, but I have had my experience of the power, and I have my experience of the power every day. What? You see, now that I've got that in my opinion, for me, I'm not saying what you should think. I know what has happened to me. Through the understandings that I've just talked about, I have come to a place where step 2 now makes sense. If I don't have power and I'm going to use God's power, I need to get in harmony with that. And isn't that what's, that's the other thing about the book. It hangs together. Everything supports these ideas. Page 164, it says, see to it that your relationship with him is right. It doesn't define what that should be. My relationship with him, and if my relationship with him is right, then great things will come to pass. I love metaphors and analogies. And one of them that I really love is this. If I need to know who I am, and if you were to ask me today, who are you? I think I'm a divine being. I think that I have the power of God, the mind of God within me. But I do not have, nobody has given me the right to do everything that I want. If it's in harmony with grace, it's perfect. And I think that's what the person meant who said, be careful what you put out. I started out to say this idea of knowing who I am. If I were to go out of my home today and go out on the street and go to the grocery store and say, I'm Queen Elizabeth, send my bill to Buckingham Palace. Not like you can understand. In a sense, it's kind of a stupid analogy, but in a way it isn't. I have to know who I am. And you see what has happened through knowing who I am, that I am made out of the spirit, that mind is in me. Everything goes different. I'm not pretending I'm Queen Elizabeth. I'm Mildred Frank, and I act like that. So knowing who we are is really important. It's taken me a long time. I don't know where you are in that process, but I believe in that process and I believe what I'm saying. And I think it's safe to say, the book says lack of power. That's my dilemma. A dilemma is a choice between two unpleasant decisions. My dilemma, I lack power, but it says we have to find the power that will solve our problem. And that's what I think this is all about. And that's why I started the way I did. I'm sober. Is that not a miracle after the way I lived my life, after the way I thought, and the way, I spent a good number of years? It's a process, not done. Every once in a while I break out of, even though I really believe in powerlessness. And I really believe that in step 1, where it says we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, I think as we grow, we see I'm powerless over everything. I don't have power of my own. And because I have acted as if I did, that's where the unmanageability of my life comes in. My life is not unmanageable today. It's not perfect, but based on the fact of trying to do what God wants me to do, God as I understand God, my life goes really very smoothly. And where I used to hate people and judge and criticize, that's pretty much done. I walk through the earth today very comfortably. Just a few things I want to say yet about the situation that we're in, because I think we get sober not to sit on, I didn't get sober to sit on my hiney and say, well, I'm sober, that's it. No, I think we get sober so that we can wake up. Step 12 says it. You know, Bill Wilson said he used to think that life was about being happy. And he said, I don't believe that anymore. He said it's about growing in God consciousness. And that's what I believe. So, you know, I've had to rethink. I am staying in. And so what can I do for the world? Because I believe that's what I got sober for. St. Francis knew. He said, Lord, let me be an instrument. So it's inside me. Let me give it out. Where there's hatred, let me bring love, and so on. So Mildred, you know that that power is within you. What are you doing for the world today? I have a young man. He's out every day. He's driving people to doctor's appointments. He's driving lunches to people, and so on and so on. He goes to somebody's house and he does their washing. He's looking after his parents and so on. And me, I'm sitting at home. And I said to myself, okay, couch potato, what can you contribute to the world? What does the world need? Yeah, it needs masks and it needs all that outer stuff. I absolutely understand that. But I also believe the world is getting a reset. And, you know, if I've learned anything, and Dr. Bob said it, I'm not saying anything that's outside of AA. He said, life is consciousness. Emmett Fox said that inside and out. Be careful what's inside because that's what you will see on the outside. So what can I do? Well, I do a lot of phone calls. I teach a class every Friday night. I believe what the scientists have said. Two things. There's only one of us here. If that is true, if page 55 is right, there is only one of us here. That power that is everywhere, that is in me, that is in you, that is in everybody. What can I do about that? Consciousness. Consciousness matters. There's a lot of hatred out there. I can bring love. That's what St. Francis said. Where there's hatred, I can bring love and take that into the consciousness. Because I don't think this is going to be solved just by fixing the virus. I think there's an inner work that has to be done. And, you know, another thing the scientists, I love science. Another thing the scientists have said is, and they've proved it by scientific experiments, this isn't somebody's foolish idea. They've said that what you observe changes what it is you're looking at. I'm going to say that again. What you observe changes what you're looking at. So I can look at this world and I can say, oh, it's awful, it's terrible, let's get finished with it. Or I can look and I can see goodness. I can see the unselfishness of the people who are out there. I can see God present in every person, whether they know it or not. And in my own way, I'm contributing something, and I think that's really essential. Isn't that what our program is about? It's about the inner change, and it's that I can give. Otherwise, I wouldn't feel good. I feel great because every day I am making a contribution as I can do. And each one of us has something that we can do. So I have to tell you, I am grateful to know that I'm powerless. I can't believe I'm saying that, but I feel it in my heart. The world is off my shoulders. It's not my world. I didn't create it. I didn't put the laws there. My job is to recognize that power that is within me, try to live in love and goodness and kindness and compassion for everybody, whether I know you or not. And I want to show you something. When I was in Miami the last time, I love this cup. It says the Queen of Everything. So with that, the Queen of Everything says, thank you to all of you. It's wonderful to see you. It's wonderful to be able to share with you. I send you my love and blessings, and be well, be safe, and God be with you. Amen.